Welcome to Biblical Bible Beginnings. Join Big Russ, Regina, and me, Mary Beth, on faithful footsteps of the Old Testament trail. Experience the Bible like never before, read chronologically and brought to life.
Hey everybody, welcome to House Connell. Welcome to BBB, Biblical Bible Beginnings. Welcome back to day 2 of Faithful Footsteps of the Old Testament Trail. My name is Regina Connell. You just heard our faithful ChatGPT open source AI co-host Mary Beth. And now we have Big Russ on stage. Hey babe.
Hey, how's it going everybody? Welcome to Biblical Bible Beginnings. This is our new Bible study that we're going to be doing. Another chronological plan that we put together. I hope you're going to enjoy it. We're going to incorporate
Thank you for joining us on
the Old Testament with the Book of Enoch slid in there. So just like with when we were doing the New Testament, we're going to do the Old Testament chronological, so we will be skipping around. We're also going to pull in the Book of Enoch, which starts today. So when you see us starting in what looks to be like weird chapters and all that stuff, is just because we're trying to do it chronologically at the same time that it would have happened at the stuff that we're reading in the Old Testament in the Bible. So
Yep.
Hopefully it's not meant to confuse anybody. It's really meant to be educational and informative, and to hopefully bring a better clarity to what's going on, since the Old Testament can be quite confusing if you've never read it before, like myself.
Well, that's what I was going to just say, babe. You just said the magical words, is that's why people are so confused, right? Because it's not put together how it happened. It's not put together in date order. And I would, even within the same books, a lot of them, they kind of go in date order. I will say this. I believe that a lot of that reason is simply there were so many different authors to the different books, and even in some of the books the authorship is unknown, just like with the Book of Enoch we're about to get into. Husband just mentioned, so yes, today we are in the Book of Enoch. Yesterday, or I could say yesterday, so we are definitely pre-recording this in advance. Maybe I'll find a way to take that out. Anyway, so the launch date February 2nd, so we're already well into that. We're in the second day of it. So you guys, the Book of Enoch, previously we read Genesis up to chapter 4. Yep. We read up to chapter 4. So today we are reading the Book of Enoch, and we're also going to be reading the Book of Genesis again. So we're going to be addressing chapter 6, 7, a few verses in chapter 8. We're going to be addressing Genesis, and then we're going to also be getting into the book of First Chronicles. So it's going to be an action-packed, exciting day. So I'm ready whenever you are, hubby. Let's get this started. And you guys, we do have Bible Gateway that I will be sharing the screen with, www.biblegateway.com. Remember, we said we're only reading from two translations. The third is more like additional books that are being brought in. And husband, would it interest you to know that I've recently found out that there's even more? There's a book of Mary Magdalene that I would really love to get a hold of. And do you remember me telling you that I really firmly believe that Mary Magdalene and the sisters of Lazarus, Mary and Martha, that I believe that Mary and Mary Magdalene were the same person?
I think I have heard you mention that before.
So I recently stumbled across some information where there are other people that have the same beliefs. So let's get into this, guys. We want to keep it, honor everyone's time to an hour or under. And I'm ready when you are, husband. So we are in the first... we're doing chapter 6.
Today you're going to be in the Book of Enoch, chapter 6, and we're going to go through from verse 1 into chapter 7, verse 2.
Yeah, and we have a surprise for you guys because we do struggle with some of the enunciation of some of the titles. So we have something that's going to help us out. We say someone, not really a someone. Could be, though. All right, let's get started. Chapter 6, you want to start the reading out?
Yep.
Let's do it.
And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the
Comely.
comely,
Yeah, meaning
yeah,
attractive, very attractive.
yes.
Welcome to
And
Biblical
the
Bible.
angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. So, right there, I guess, like coming off of the first day's readings where we talked about the creation of heaven and earth, and he put Adam and Eve on earth, and then Eve was able to have two sons, Cain and Abel, and then so now we're starting to get to where some of the females are
Yep.
born, and that's where the multiplication starts.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of interest in Cain's wife. Like, how did Cain find a wife and all of that stuff? So that will be interesting to kind of maybe take a look at or keep under our cap as we're heading along this journey. Maybe keep our eyes a little bit more peeled, ears a little bit, because I'm always interested in the women. The women, whether they were Jezebels or whether they were the most devout, holiest of women, I want to know about them.
All right, let's continue on. This is verse 3. And Samjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And
Okay, so hold on a second. So let's talk about these people, right? Are these angels? These sound like angels, right? And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them and said to one another, Come, let us choose wives from among the children of men and beget us children. So it sounds like that was off limits, maybe. God said that's a no-no.
must be.
Must be. Verse 3.
If it's a sin, then that would have to be the way that it is, I would think.
Yeah, so verse 3, and Semjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. Oh my gosh, so Semjaza is trying to talk them out of doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is where the angels got together, they had their meeting, and they decide that, why do you think they wanted to infringe upon us? Do you think that they wanted to be worshipped like gods too?
Probably.
All right, so can I pick up verse 4 and start reading?
Sure.
And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. So, I mean, if Simjaza is in charge of the angels and now, they're saying, well, no, we're going to bind us to each other. Did they think the punishment would be less severe if they did that? And Simjaza, I'm sure if he was the leader of them, he cared about each and every one of them, even though they were doing wrong. He knew they were doing wrong. He tried to tell them, no, I don't agree to this. So, verse 5, then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. Verse 6, and they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. Wow.
Mhm.
Wow. I mean, that just. And now we're about to find out the names. Will you read what I just read, like from verse 3 to? I want to hear you read it, like
Yeah.
from Samjaza's point of view.
And Samjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were all, in all, 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon, and they called it Mount Hermon because they had sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it.
So I wonder, is this before the fall or after the fall? Because this could have been a good reason for the fall, right? Because if you think about it, most people say the serpent in the garden. And I just came across something on YouTube that the thumbnail read, the serpent wasn't actually a serpent in the garden, and the serpent was not a serpent, right? It's the serpent was described as a serpent, but the punishment for the actions of the, do the air quotes for me, air quotes, serpent, the actions of it, the serpent, air quote serpent, was that he would crawl on his belly, that he would strike man's heel all the days of his life, and that man would crush his head. So already he's guaranteed that you're not going to survive, right? You may take out a few, you may get a few under your belt, whatever, but that's all you're going to get. So I'm really interested in the fact that they all, and this is what we do. This is what we do as humans. We're like, okay, if we all make this bond together. So at that point, we could theorize that, so Samjaza, at that point, they were all together. Well, where was Satan in all of this, right? Who is Satan? Is Satan Azazel? That's what I'm trying to figure out, right? And then, I'm assuming the fall had already happened, right? That they already knew that, Satan tested those waters by, I believe the fall happened because of what he did in the Garden of Eden, right? That's when like the OG sin happened. So to me, that would mean his downfall. Like God wouldn't have, you think Satan didn't get punished for that? I think the serpent is metaphorical too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, well, so read verse 6, and I'll get Mary Beth queued up to read all these verse 7 names for us. Unless you want to have a go at it.
No, let her. That's our, I guess, surprise to everybody is
Oh,
we're
sorry.
we're going to let her read verse 7 since it's got the names, and neither one of us want to butcher the
Them.
names, and so
Yep.
yeah.
Even though these, these watchers, angels, whatever, they weren't doing very honorable things, we still want to honor their names because it was their names given by God. All right, let's go. And so, hey, Mary Beth, can you please read chapter 6, verse 7 of the Book of Enoch, please, for us, and help us out with these names?
Certainly. Here's Enoch chapter 6, verse 7. And these are the names of their leaders: Samlazaz, their leader, Arakba, Ramel, Kokabel, Ramel, Danel, Ezekiel, Barakijel, Asael, Armaros, Batarel, Ananel, Zachiel, Satarel, Turel, Jomjael, and Sariel. How did that sound?
That sounded great. And who was Simjaza in relation to Lucifer?
Shemhazai, also known as Samyaza or Semjaza, is a leader of the fallen angels, or watchers, in the Book of Enoch. He led the group of angels who defied God by descending to earth and mating with human women, resulting in the birth of the Nephilim. While Shemhazai is often associated with leading this rebellion, he's not directly equated with Lucifer. Lucifer is traditionally known as a separate figure, often associated with the devil or Satan in Christian theology.
Well, even though the two are separate, we believe they're truly not, which is why we're integrating them. So in God's eyes, do you think maybe these angels may have saw what Lucifer did, in the Garden of Eden? I believe that was the reason for his fall, was it not?
Your perspective aligns with a common interpretation in Christian theology, where Lucifer's fall is linked to his pride and rebellion against God, often associated with the temptation of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. The story of the Watchers in the Book of Enoch can be seen as a parallel rebellion where angels transgress divine boundaries. Both narratives reflect themes of disobedience and the consequences of turning away from God's will. Your integration of these ideas adds a layer of depth to your discussion, highlighting the broader theme of angelic rebellion in religious texts.
Awesome. All right, we'll hit you back, lady. All right, well, I like that. So you want to continue on with verse 8, and then we'll jump into chapter 7. I think there's only 4 verses. We'll be finishing chapter 8 too, but I'm only seeing 2 verses, but the plan says there's 4 verses.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I saw that too. But here's the very last sentence of chapter 6 is these are their chiefs of tens.
Oh, so wow.
Those were the 10 names of the 10 leaders that they're referring to.
So they commanded 20 under them because there were 200 in total, right? So they would have commanded, if there were 10 leaders, these are the 10s, then there would have been 20 angels under them. I'm assuming, if that math is right.
Right. All right. And then we're going to read the first 2 verses of chapter 7. So I'll go with that.
You know what? Hold on. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet. Go ahead. The first 2 verses. Go ahead.
Yep. And all the others together with them took unto themselves wives, and each chose for himself one, and they began to go unto them and to defile themselves with them, and they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. Verse 2, and they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, whose height was 3,000 ells.
3,000 ells. I wonder what that equates to. Keep reading. I'm going to ask Mary Beth while you're reading. I'm going to mute out.
All right, so we pick back up in at verse 3. Who consumed all the acquisitions of men, and when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. And that finishes up chapter 7.
3,000 ells would be approximately 4,500 feet, or about 1,370 meters, which is it is quite a staggering figure, isn't it? The description
So she said it was about the same as one forearm, right? So if you imagine your forearm and 3,000 of those, and then she gave it in meters. I didn't mean to cut you off. Sorry about that. So you went all the way through to...
I finished up chapter 7.
Yeah, because it called for that. So now we're going to chapter 8. We're a little confused, which we could have misread the plan. I might have written it down wrong. But we're just going to go ahead and go with it. So y'all don't freak out because none of this is in stone.
And it just talks like this is like a lot of the stuff that is not in the Bible. Like that's
Right.
why it's confusing to some people. But I've heard about these giants and stuff, and we even saw um, them mentioned when we watched that movie, the Noah.
Yeah.
We saw some stuff about the giants, so we know that they were real.
I don't know why Christianity, and I found some really interesting facts, which I think could be a whole nother show when we start our Wednesday, Sunday night lives. We can really go deeper into these topics because, like we said, the fact that it's strongly believed that Mary Magdalene and the sister Mary of Lazarus was indeed the same woman. It's also, I strongly believe that um, uh, Eliphaz the Temanite in the story of Job was the son of Esau and Adah, which Esau was Jacob's older twin brother. But anyway, with all that said, why do Christians continuously want to decide, oh, that has nothing to do with it? That's something separate. What do you mean it's something separate? It's clearly in the canonical Bible. Christian Holy Bible, and then, I heard Ben Shapiro, I was really disappointed in this, basically saying that Jesus was just a common criminal. And I could go for days talking about that. And then, when the Christian man was bringing up his point, of course, just as a Pharisee would, Ben Shapiro was like, well, that I don't talk about things that don't interest me and that doesn't interest me. Well, you want to talk about Christianity and religion and all that. Now you say it doesn't interest you when it doesn't fit your narrative. Well, that's what we're talking about. So don't let your minds be fooled. And it's okay to wonder and at the beauty of it, right? How much stock are we putting into it? At the end of the day, Jesus is the reason. We're just enamored and in awe of the whole entire story.
Yep. I don't know. This is like
Deep.
Yeah, some of this stuff is super deep, and after having coming off of reading Revelation, it kind of goes back to that. A lot of this so far reminds me of that when you're talking about
Yep.
angels, and then some of this stuff was before like real mankind came about. Like you had
Right.
Eve, but you had a bunch of sinful stuff that happened after that before actual mankind was like multiplied, so to speak, because you had these angels coming down after these females, and then things were mating that weren't necessarily supposed to be mating together that formed these giants
And why do people think that God gives us so much grace? He gives us so much grace because he wants us to choose him, right? And I believe that God knows that, when you got a giant coming at you and you think that your choices aren't what they are, things play into, we don't know what God's ultimate plan is, but that tells us that there was already what's the word I'm looking for? There was already a dissension in the heavenly realms before we were even made. So we know from Psalm 139 that each and every one of us was planned before the beginning, before the foundation or the formation of the earth, right? With that said, well, I think he planned us out for a reason, I mean, so Satan was already exhibiting signs of pride and ungratefulness. And I think where we live is like heaven on earth. Can you even imagine? And then they took it for granted too.
Yeah. Let's keep going
Yeah.
in chapter 8 and see what else kind of dark, sinful stuff went on during this time. It's
Can I pick up the reading though? I want to pick up the reading because I'm really fascinated by Azazel. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I've often wondered, well, let me just go. So, chapter 8, and Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony or antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones and all coloring tinctures. So there's your paint right there, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Coloring tinctures. Verse 2, and there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. Semyaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Armoros, the resolving of enchantments. Barachial, and this is in parentheses, taught astrology. Kokabel, the constellations. Ezekiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Arekiel, the signs of the earth. Shamziel, the signs of the sun. And Sariel, the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. So they're crying out to the ultimate God. And this makes me think of the Greek gods, right? You hear the Greek mythology, all these different mythologies. What if these were all the same fallen angels?
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, I just, you know how I get, baby. You know
Yeah.
how I get.
I mean, it just, we could go on. There's not enough time in the day for
There's not.
on this stuff. We're
Yeah,
just,
and I go ahead. I'm sorry. This is our disclaimer to you guys that look, we hope this just inspires you to either pick it up, read it
dive
by
into
yourself.
it, like, dive into it deeper, get a better understanding for yourself, and
Talk amongst yourselves.
educate us, because that's all we're doing.
Yes. Tell us your thoughts. Don't be afraid. You don't need somebody with some kind of, seminary school. You don't have to go to your local bishop. Or I think it would be my hope if I were in that position that people. This is what Jesus would say. Take it and spread the word. Learn more about us. So yeah, like Big Russ was saying, talk amongst yourselves about it, and then bring it back to us. Let us know.
Yeah, I mean, we're all ears. We're eager to have these discussions and figure it out, and because we don't know. I mean, that's the whole purpose of doing it. I'm not so sure that I would trust somebody who was highly educated in this if I wasn't interested in reading it myself to try to get my own understanding of it. So that's the purpose of what we do, is to try to, let's figure it out together.
Yeah, and I constantly say that patchwork Bible study. I think it's coming back to smack me in the lips, but it does seem like patchwork Bible study. It's truly not. It's patchworked out to the way that, as far as we know, is the way that it happened chronologically in date order. And we will give our resources. I'll link it, with our series when this launches and everything, with our resources, so that you guys, and this is to encourage you to go out and find your resources, and let's build a community. All right, babe. So we are in Genesis, right?
We're going to go read Genesis chapter 5, the whole thing.
All right. Sounds good.
I'll get started on it.
Yep.
This is the written account of Adam's line. When God created man, he made him in the likeness of God. He created them male and female and blessed them. And when they were created, he called them man. Verse 3, when Adam had lived 130 years, he had a son in his own likeness, in his own image, and he named him Seth. Verse 4, after Seth was born, Adam lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Adam lived 930 years, and then he died. Verse 6, when Seth had lived 105 years, he became the father of Enosh. Not Enoch, but Enosh. Verse 7, and after he became the father of Enosh, Seth lived 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Verse 8, altogether Seth lived 912 years, and then he died. Verse 9, when Enosh, she said, with
had
the help
lived
of the
90
Lord,
years, he became the father of Kenan. And after he became the father of Kenan, Enosh lived 850 years, 815 years, and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enosh lived 905 years, and then he died. Verse 12, when Kenan had lived 70 years, he became the father of Mahalalel. And
Yep.
huh?
I said, yep, you said that perfectly. Go ahead. Mahalahel.
And after he became the father of Mahalalel, Kenan lived 840 years and had other sons and daughters. And verse 14, altogether, Kenan lived 910 years, and then he died.
All right, I'm going to pick up at 4.
Where
were you at?
No, I do
Go
have
ahead.
a question or comment. After reading what we just read in Enoch a little bit, and we got into where, they were talking about the giants and stuff like this. Like, how did those people live to be 900 years? Were they like 100% human? Like back then, were they like as human as we are today, or was
So
something else in their DNA?
yeah, hold on, stop, pause. Let me answer the first question. So this is my belief. This is why I ask so much about lineage and timelines, right? Because when it's all addressed in one lump, right? When Adam and Eve are banished from the garden, right? Because the angels, God is talking and he's saying that we talked amongst ourselves that if they're able to eat from the tree of life, because there was the tree of life and then there was the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, right? So that tells us that there was more than one tree. There's been a great assumption that I've heard that people believe that it's the same tree, but I don't believe that it was the same tree. I believe they're two separate trees. And so the tree of life gives eternal life, right? It's like the proverbial fountain of youth or whatever. So that causes me great wonder too. Like, I don't even think about the scientific part of it really, or the makeup of them, or maybe I do. I think that back then, before the Tower of Babel, I don't know, because so the Tower of Babel came along after they were banished from the Garden of Eden. So I guess the genealogy had to run out, right? Because Adam and Eve they had to have lived a very long time. So they were born that way because they ate from the tree of life. So if they had any children while they were in the garden, we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
They were meant to be married. They were meant to be together. They were meant to multiply. That was the original thing that they were supposed to do along with the animals. So did they have children? Could the children of them be could Lucifer be a child of I don't know. I think about all these things.
Yeah. Because it doesn't really talk about anybody after Cain and Abel.
Right. And
Or
then
before
it's mentioned right. And then it's also mentioned that God created time for humans, right? So if we weren't really putting a time on something, I don't know, but they did keep up with the years that they lived. I don't think the calendars were different back then. They were to a certain extent because, of the Roman Empire, and even pharaohs were elevating themselves to deity status for a long time before Jesus Christ came along. So it's just, I mean, like you said, we can sit here and we could debate it all day long. What gets me is when people just flat out say, no, that's not possible or whatever, and they won't even look at the evidence.
I mean, I don't know. There's probably something out there that would go along with, or on the other hand, dispute whatever you could say.
Yeah. Agreed.
There may be something that agrees 100% with you, but then there's probably something out there that.
Well, for the longest time, the Egyptian government was really not allowing people to get in and see the artifacts that have been discovered that were believed to be from the flood, Noah's Ark, and all of that. And a lot of them are not Christian, right? And even the Jewish don't believe that Jesus is the Messiah. And of course, they would want to withhold certain things because if the people truly knew the truth, right? What would happen? They would not make as much money, all of that. Yet, at the end of the day, we're supposed to meant to come to Christ. And if we don't, I don't know what happens on this part of our journey.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, let's pick back up in verse
I love
50.
these conversations with you, baby.
Yeah, but like you always say, in the sake of time, we'll
Yep,
because we're going to have these kind of conversations all through this because
we will.
that's how exciting this reading is and how
It
much
truly is.
we're eager to figure it out. But
Yeah. So I'm going to pick up. We were at 14, right?
15.
15. So I'm going to pick up at 14. So all the days of Canaan were 910 years, and he died. Mahalalel also lived 60 and 5 years and begat Jared. So that's 60 and 5 more, or also, yeah, when he was 65, he had Jared, I guess.
Yes.
So also Mahalalel lived after he begat Jared 830 years. He begat sons and daughters. So he had many more. Sounds like a Job kind of story, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So all the days of Mahalalel were 890 and 5 years, and he died. And Jared lived 160 and 2 years and begat Enoch. Here we go, guys. So Enoch is the son of Jared, and Mahalalel was his grandfather. Then Jared lived after he begat Enoch 800 years and begat sons and daughters. So he had sons and daughters after Enoch, right?
Well, that
800 years after.
hold on. If you go back to chapter 4, they had a son named Enoch. So
Who?
which is the right Enoch?
Who had a son?
In chapter 4, it says that Cain lay with his wife and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch.
Right. I believe Canaan is Cain, right? Because this is the 1599 Geneva. So the name Canaan should be Cain.
Okay.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Enosh. So, no. Okay. So Canaan. No, Enoch came later. Canaan. So let's go back through it just so we have it right. So in verse 4, in the days of Adam. So go along in chapter 4 and try to find the lineage because I don't have my Bible in front of me.
Verse 17.
Let's
Chapter
go look
4,
at it.
verse 17.
Yeah, let's look at it together. So, okay, that's a great point that you bring up. Cain also knew his wife. Let's look at it before, though. So Cain leaves out. They have Enoch, and Enoch was born to Irad. Irad begat Mahuahel, Mahuahel Methusael Lamech. So no, okay, so wait a minute. No, so Lamech is in Enoch's line. So Zillah bore Tubal Cain. So there's a lot of Cains here, right? There's Canaan. Okay, so and Adam knew his wife again, and she bore a son, called him Seth, because Canaan slew him, Seth. Okay, and called his name Enosh. So Seth had Enosh. Then, so this is the book of generations from Adam. Now Adam lived 130 years, begat his own likeness and image. So we had Seth. Seth, after Cain and Abel, was Seth. So after that, 800 years, and he begat sons. So all the days Adam lived were 930 years. Seth lived 105 and begat Enosh. And then Enosh he had more sons and daughters 800 years after Enosh. So all the days of Seth were 912 years, and he died. Also, Enosh lived 90 years and begat Canaan. Enosh lived after he begat Canaan 815 years. So Canaan was living for 815 years, is what it sounds like, I guess. And his dad Enosh had more sons and daughters. Then Enosh lived 905 years. Likewise, Canaan lived 70 years and begot Mahalalel. So at 70 years of age, he had Mahalalel. It sounds like he didn't have any sons and daughters before then that we know of, or that were worthy enough for mention or writing. Canaan lived in Mahalalel 840 years and begat sons and daughters. Canaan, Mahalalel. I mean, we just got to keep reading through the lineage because Enoch. So if Enoch was born of Cain, right? If that's the case, because we know that even though sons and daughters may have shared the same father, they could have been hundreds of years apart in age.
Mm-hmm.
But it does mention two different people. But Jared had Enoch. So your Bible reads, who had Enoch?
Jared.
Yeah. That was in verse 17 in chapter 4 too.
No, this is verse 18. No, verse 15 in verse 18 in chapter 5.
No, yeah. So go back to verse 17 in chapter 4.
That is, Cain lay with his wife and became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. I just think there's that was an Enoch, but it's not the Enoch that this book refers to.
Agreed.
I think the second person that was named Enoch is the person that, because it talks about him,
Yeah.
God took him away, and so that's the Enoch that.
Yeah, and as far as we know, there's really no more mention of the Enoch from Cain anyway.
Right. So I just think that was the first one named Enoch, but that's not the Enoch that's known
Well,
as.
yeah, and don't forget, husband. We are going to be getting into First Chronicles, chapters 1 through 4. Will set up a lot for us too, and going back into the Book of Enoch and maybe giving more clarity as to the lineage. But I'm with you. I think that we're talking about two separate Enochs.
But I was confused there. So
me too, and I'm glad you pointed it out because other people will be too. They'll be like, hold the brakes. So yeah, I think it's possible we're talking about two separate Enochs, and between now and then we can be working on finding some stuff. And you guys in the community, help us out. All right, so I'm going to continue on. So in verse 16, also Mahalalel lived after he begat Jared 830 years and begat sons and daughters. So all the days of Mahalalel were 890 years, and he died. So and Jared lived 60 and 2 years and begat Enoch. So why don't you start from 19 and continue the lineage?
And after he became the father of Enoch, Jared lived 800 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Jared lived 962 years, and then he died. Verse 21, when Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah.
Okay, stop. So yes, this is the Enoch. This is Jared's Enoch is the Enoch that we're reading the Book of Enoch.
Okay.
I don't know who the Cain Enoch is, and the reason I say that is because we know that Enoch had Methuselah. Methuselah lived to be 900 and no, hold on. Yeah, Methuselah was the oldest one, and he was the grandfather of Enoch, or yeah, because Lamech was the father. So Enoch had Methuselah, Methuselah had Lamech, and Lamech had Noah.
Well, we're getting ready to read that. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Well, I know my lineage, baby. See there? Go ahead.
When Enoch had lived 65 years, he became the father of Methuselah. And after he became the father of Methuselah, Enoch walked with God for 300 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Enoch lived 365 years. Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him away.
Wait. Okay, so that's key right there. That is key right there. Sorry, I blew my mic out on that one. So what you just read, verse 22. So verse 21. So at 65 years of age, he had Methuselah. This is key. And Enoch walked with God. And after he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters. So did Enoch have more sons and daughters? But it sounds like he walked with God. So what does he walked with God look like? Right? So that's what we're about to find out when we read the book of Enoch. Keep going.
Mm-hmm. Altogether, Enoch lived 365 years. Enoch walked with God, then he was no more because God took him away. So it
All
sounds
right,
like
stop.
he was God's first,
Yeah.
right
Hey,
hand person,
but
main
did you notice his
beloved,
age?
whatever.
The number of his age. Look at the number of his age.
Yeah, 300 and something.
Read it again.
365 years.
So what do we have in 1 year?
365 days.
That was the first thing I noticed
Yeah.
about that. All right, keep going, husband. Sorry about that.
Verse 25, when Methuselah had lived 187 years, he became the father of Lamech. And after he became the father of Lamech, Methuselah lived 782 years and had other sons and daughters. Verse 27, altogether Methuselah lived 969 years, and then he died. Verse 28, when Lamech had lived 182 years, he had a son. He named him Noah and said, he will comfort us in labor and painful toil of our hands caused by the ground the Lord has cursed. After Noah was born, Lamech lived 595 years and had other sons and daughters. Altogether, Lamech lived 777 years, and then he died. And after Noah was 500 years old, he became the father of Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Japheth. So can you imagine? So he lived 500 years before he ever had children and all of that. And remember, this is before he was called to build the ark.
Mm-hmm.
Because Japheth, Shem, Ham, all of them went on the ark with him. Remember?
Yep.
So this is fascinating to me, mainly because you question, we're taking a deeper dive into the lineage. And, I think circling back to your original question, which we're going to finish out with First Chronicles 1-4, right? 1-4. Yeah. So I think I'm in agreement with you. I think what happened was when the Nephilim came, that probably all the ones that lived so long were part of that Nephilim bloodline, right? The giants, all of that, because we're all half breeds, right? To some extent. And it would take, I guess, man's evolution as maybe we de-evolved, but I wouldn't call it de-evolving because that was cleansing us of all that stuff. But I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy, right? It's crazy. But I mean, every action, there's a consequence. Do we accept responsibility? And no, Lucifer doesn't want to accept responsibility. Sounds like the angels that were fallen wanted to corrupt man because they could. And we don't know their motives for doing it. But, it sounds like, I don't know why they thought they could be bigger or better than God. But it just sounds like it comes down to greed and just wanting to be seen.
Yep. The last 4 verses that we read today it's very, very short. It's just a list of names.
Yep.
We'll just go ahead and close that out real quick. And
yeah, let me bring it up on screen real quick while you're getting there, because that is something that we can give a visual aid. So it's First Chronicles chapter 1:1-4. You can go ahead and start reading.
And this will wrap up today's readings after I list this. But First Chronicles, verse 1, Adam, Seth, Enosh, Kenan, Mahalalel, Jared, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech, Noah, and verse 4, the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth.
Yeah, it's real simple right here on the screen. If you guys can see this, I love it. No words, no fluff, no stuff. 1, Adam, Seth, Enosh. 2, Canaan, Mahalalel, Jared. 3, Enoch, Methuselah, Lamech. 4, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. All right, guys, that's it for today.
Yep, that wraps up our readings.
Could do our prayer. We made it through, baby.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff there.
Does your head hurt? My head's starting to hurt just a little tiny bit.
But yes, I'll go ahead and close us out in prayer, and then we will see you guys on the next one.
Yeah.
We'll do our simple prayer that we've been doing from the very beginning of this journey from our New Testament reading. We're going to continue it during this journey as well. But it's our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thy is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. Thank you guys for joining us.
Next one.
See you on the next one. Peace out.
Thank you for joining us on Faithful Footsteps of the Old Testament Trail. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and follow. We'd love to hear your prayer requests, praise reports, and feedback. Until next time, may your journey be blessed.